Welcome to Crime in Court. This is an, a new series regarding the Menendez brothers case. So, on my channel, we've gone through the 1993 trial, we've streamed through that. We are now currently going through the 1996 transcript read through because unfortunately there were no cameras. So, we're reading through the transcripts and comparing the two different trials, and now I'm putting in a new playlist on my channel just so you guys don't get confused and to keep things separate. I created the Menendez Brothers Path to Freedom playlist, which on here we will go over other motions and things like that, the post-conviction motions, the appellate motions, the, request for sentence motions and things like that. So, we're actually going to go over today the hearing on the people's motion to withdraw. So, if you're not familiar with that, so Nathan Hochman, the current DA, decided that he wanted to withdraw the request for resentencing that was submitted by his predecessor George Gascon back last year in 2024. I think it was like in October-ish. It was like right near the election. And then he lost the election, Gascon did. He was unseated by Nathan Hochman. Nathan Hochman, who doesn't have the authority to actually withdraw a resentencing request because it was done in good faith. It was done, there was a thorough review and everything, and we'll get into that. So he has no actual real authority to be, um, you know, withdrawing the request from his predecessor, basically. So there's no law, there's no case law for that, and he didn't provide any. So there was a hearing yesterday, Friday, uh, April 11th. I forgot what month we were in for a second there, and it got heated. As you may or may not know, the DA, Nathan Hochman, who I like to call a tool because Nathan Hochman is a tool, he he has gone on this like diva press tour where he's telling everyone and anyone that'll listen that the brothers are guilty and they lied, and that but in doing so he's lying, like he's making up things about the case that never really happened or aren't facts that are in evidence. And it's very telling that he's calling them liars when he's lying himself. So that's kind of where we're at. The first half of the day, more than half of the day for this hearing on the 11th that took place, Nathan Hochman did not do the arguments. I'm surprised because he loves to hear his own voice, but he had one of his deputy DAs do the arguing. His name is Habib Belial. We'll get into all the details in this article. I'm going to read the Los Angeles Times article here. So please hit the like button and let's learn about what happened. This is a recap, obviously, of the hearing. There was no cameras in this courtroom again, so we don't know. We don't have the actual, audio or video of this, but we have a recap from people that were there. And I was going to say something else, and now I forgot. Oh well, it'll come to me. So this is the Menendez brothers to get, this is the Los Angeles article titled Menendez brothers to get resentencing after DA fails to bid to stop it. That's what I was going to say is Judge Michael Jessic. He's a Superior Court judge for Los Angeles County. He overheard arguments on Friday. Both sides got to argue, so it wasn't just one-sided. It wasn't just Nathan Hochman's team spewing lies, although they did for hours. But Mark Garagos did get to speak in response to what they said, and ultimately the judge did rule in favor of the Menendez brothers, which means, so this whole hearing was all about whether or not to move forward with the resentencing hearing, which had already been scheduled prior to Nathan Hogman coming into office. but it got moved back because of the LA fires. So it got rescheduled, and it's now been rescheduled twice. So this is the third time that it's been scheduled or on the calendar, and they tried to stop it yet again. So it wasn't, I don't think the LA fires was obviously the LA County DA's office fault, but I do think that they didn't mind pushing it back because they don't want the brothers out. And the real problem is the brothers have a really, really good rehabilitation record, and that's what counts in the resentencing, and they completely ignored it. So let's dive in and see what this author or these authors have to say. An LA County judge denied District Attorney Nathan Hochman's bid Friday to revoke a petition to resentence the Menendez brothers that was filed by his predecessor, setting the stage for a hearing that could offer the brothers a path to freedom next week. Superior Court Judge Michael Jessic denied Huckman's request after a tense day-long hearing that saw prosecutors display bloody crime scene photos of the bodies of Jose and Kitty Menendez in a courtroom lined with their relatives, many of whom want the perpetrators, Erik and Lyle, free. So, the family members, all of the living family members now, you can actually say that there isn't one that opposes them coming out because Milton, the last surviving brother of Kitty, passed away not that long ago. So, the only people that the only victims left, the real victims of the crime, all want the brothers out. So, there's that. In October, former District Attorney George Gascon sought to have the brothers resentenced to 50 years to life in prison, a move that could have made them eligible for parole as youthful offenders because they carried out the homicides before they were 26 years old. As I've talked about on my channel numerous times, your brain isn't even fully developed until about 25 years old. So to say, well, they were adults, that doesn't mean that they were anywhere near mature enough to handle the situation that they were in. And especially when they had been abused since both of them severely since the ages of 6 each, then that trauma carries over into your adulthood. Any little trauma can carry into your adulthood, let alone the severe trauma that they had. All right, so after Hochman thrashed Gascon in the November election, he promised to revisit the Menendez case. He also said he was going to be fair and look at it, from all angles, and I don't think he did. Last month, Hochman formally announced his opposition to their release and said he'd ask a judge to rescind Gascon's petition and only consider his filing as the official position of the district attorney's office. But you can't do that, buddy. There's no official legal precedent for you to be like, you need to take that other motion off your desk and take mine. There's no there's no legal reason for the judge to do that. He focused on the idea that the brothers are not shown had not shown proper insight into their crimes, but Jessic dismissed that as irrelevant to the resentencing proceedings and said there was nothing really new in the analysis of the case offered by Hochman because all they did was choose to spew out the same old 90s narrative, as you can imagine, because that's what he's been doing on his press tour. So that's what he did, or that's what he had his team do in the courtroom yesterday. All right, so justice won over politics. Defense attorney Mark Garagos said outside the courtroom. Jessic's ruling on Friday clears the path for a resentencing hearing, which is expected to last at least 2 days and begin in Van Nuys on Thursday. So, like I was saying before, and then I got sidetracked, this hearing on the 11th was a hearing to decide whether or not the resentencing hearing was going to go forward. Because Nathan Hochman lost, The resentencing will go forward next week, starting Thursday and into Friday. Legal experts said there was little precedent for Hochman to try to claw back Gascon's motion, though, like I said, there's no legal precedent. There's no legal reason for him to be able to do that. It's never happened before, so you can't just make up the law as you go along, although sometimes, they think they're above the law, so it makes sense. The legal expert said there was little precedent for Hochman to try to claw back Gascon's motion, though he has every right to add his own opposition to the record. Doesn't mean that it changes anything, though, and it didn't in this instance. Hochman says these homicides were calculated, premeditated, cold-blooded KI double Ellings. He said this in a statement issued late Friday. We're actually going to hear from him. We're going to hear a press conference from the family. We're going to, or not the family, from the attorney, well, the family too. And we're going to hear an interview. We've got a lot to get through because of all of this that has happened. So hopefully I did do a good job of getting all of the interesting tidbits of what happened yesterday for you guys. So he continues on saying, our position remains clear until the Menendez family come clean with their lies of self-defense and suborning and attempting to suborn perjury. They are not rehabilitated and pose an unreasonable risk of danger to public safety. Well, this is very dangerous because this is basically implying that a DA has the authority and the power to just say what is fact and what isn't. So to say that they didn't do this in self-defense when they have always maintained that that was what they did. Um, Granted, there were lies and things to cover up before they were caught, but that's not the same as trying to, do this conspiracy to commit this crime and all this, whatever, that they try to say that they did. But anyways, in court Friday, Deputy District Attorney Habib Balian told a judge that Gascon simply didn't get the case. He doesn't understand the case. He didn't get the case and had carried out only a half-baked analysis of the brothers' past trials and their willingness to accept responsibility for the homicides. Hochman and Balian have claimed that the brothers are still lying about the circumstances of their crimes. Balian said Friday that neither Gascon nor the prosecutors who filed his three-page resentencing petition even retried the case files from archives before rendering a decision. Balian also repeated Hochman's contention that Gascon took up the case for political gain, which is so ironic because it seems like Nathan Hochman is using the brothers as political pawns himself. So for them to say that Gascon did this for political reasons is a bunch of BS, and we'll get to that as well because one of the like deputy district attorneys that worked in the office will speak at the press conference, and you'll hear his side. This was one of the ones that was pushing for the resentencing, and then eventually got demoted, transferred, moved, reassigned, whatever you want to call the term. He got moved from the LA County office to a different office, which many would argue is a demotion because of his advocating for the brothers. All right, so they're saying that Gascon took this up for political gain, even though he had been trailing Hochman by roughly 30 points in the polls, and even some of his closest advisors were admitting defeat. That still doesn't mean that it was for political reasons. Sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the 1989 shotgun homicides of their wealthy parents, Erik and Lyle Menendez saw support for their release surge after the release of the popular Netflix documentary last year and the discovery of potential new evidence that their father, Jose, essayed not only the brothers but also a former member of the band Menudo, and that would be Roy Rossello, who that there is a Peacock, I want to say a Peacock documentary as well on that called Menudo and Menendez or Menendez and Menudo, something like that. And the story about Roy Rossello and his experiences with Jose Menendez. And that's an older one. It's been out a couple of years now. In petitions seeking a new trial, the brothers' attorneys have cited the fresh SA allegations against Jose Menendez as evidence critical to their self defense claims. Balian on Friday argued that the brothers repeatedly coached witnesses at their earlier trials to lie about the threat they faced from their parents in order to bolster their self-defense arguments. As Balian spoke, Hockman looked on from the gallery. So they've always kind of said that, the brothers have been lying. They lied about all the self-defense basically to save themselves on the stand, which is ridiculous when you have over 50 plus witnesses, experts, lay witnesses, family, friends, people who knew the brothers who all testified to evidence of SA. So that argument is so stupid. Last month, Hockman filed an 88-page motion opposing the brothers' resentencing, arguing that the brothers are still lying about the motive for their crimes and thus haven't taken full responsibility for the homicides and pose an unreasonable risk to the public. The Menendez brothers have continued to lie for over 30 years about their self-defense. That is, their purported actual fear that their mother and their father were going to take their lives the night of the homicides. You don't know that. You're not in their heads. You don't know what they were thinking. The motion read. Also, over those 30 years, they have failed to accept responsibility for the vast number of lies they told in connection with that defense. They have taken responsibility repeatedly. They've been remorseful repeatedly. They've apologized repeatedly. I don't know what more this stupid guy wants. Like, I cannot stand Nathan Hockman anymore. I really can't. And I didn't even have to hear him speak yesterday. And just like listening to the updates coming in, I was like, God, I hate this man. That's not funny. I really don't like this guy. All right. So on the night of the slayings, the brothers walked into their Beverly Hills mansion and shot their parents with shotguns that they bought with cash. Jose and Kitty Menendez were watching a movie in the living room, supposedly, when Jose Menendez was shot 5 times, including in the kneecaps. That's not true. And the back of the head. He was not shot in the kneecaps, Los Angeles Times. What the heck are you doing? Reporting incorrect facts. That's what the prosecution says. That's what Nathan Hockman says, that the brothers did that only to make it look like a mafia hit, which they didn't even shoot them in the knees. There's a, a photo of Jose's thigh. Is like the outside of his thigh that very close to his knee that was shot, but it wasn't even shot like anywhere near the kneecap. So why do they get to continue to lie? And now we've got the LA Times lying. We need to point this out. Kenny Menendez crawled on the floor, wounded, before one of the brothers reloaded and fired a fatal blast. And how do we know that she was crawling? We don't freaking know that for sure. We just know she was moaning. We don't know if she was crawling. This has never made sense to me. She might have not even been in her body anymore. You know what I mean? And they're talking like she was still there and alive and whatever and it's so horrific. No, I don't think she was even still there in her body when Lyle went back to uh take her out completely. I think that she never would have made any of, she wouldn't have made it if any emergency uh what's medical assistance if had been given. I don't think she would have lived, to be quite honest. So the fact that they're like, well, kneecaps and Kitty was crawling, like I want verification on this. I think I might write the LA Times and be like, you might want to write a retraction because I don't think any of that is factual. Anywho, The brothers were charged with homicide after Erik, then 18, confessed to the homicide of his to his therapist, as we know, Dr. Oziel. During the brothers' two trials, prosecutors argued the homicides were motivated by the brothers' desire to gain access to their multi-million-dollar inheritance, but defense attorneys countered that years of violent SA by their father preceded by the shootings justified the slayings as a form. That's not what they're saying. They never said this is a horrible article. They never said it justified the slayings. They said it was the the drive, the driver for the homicides. It was what drove them to do that. It wasn't. They're not saying that it justified. And what's her face? Leslie Abramson even said, like, we're not saying that this excuses what they did, this essay that happened in their lives. What we're saying, though, is that this is the reason why it happened. You have to know the reason why in order to understand how we got here. And that's all that I think needed to be, people needed to learn a little bit more about the effects of SA at the time. They didn't know much. All right, so Balian displayed photos of the bloody crime scene in court Friday, triggering an eruption from Garagos, who accused the prosecutor of putting a dog and pony show on, meant to relitigate the original homicide case when the purpose of the hearing was solely to determine whether Gascon's motion should be revoked. Again, that was the purpose of the hearing, and they distract with all of this gory, horrible stuff, crime scene photos, which, by the way, people who were in the gallery, family, there were many, many, many family members that attended and were in the gallery and had never seen, at least I know, Anna Maria Baralt said in a video that she posted on Instagram that afterwards her mother confided to her and said, I've never seen the homicide, the crime scene photos of Kitty and Jose before. So for Hockman to put that up on the screen and to have that repeatedly, like trying to evoke emotion and trying to um, be salacious is the right word. They're just re-traumatizing the family yet again. Yet again. I really hate Hawkman so much, if I haven't said it already. Gary Ghost said, there is no concern for the victims. They are being traumatized by the DA for political purposes, like I just said. And Eric and Lyle are victims too, man. I mean, come on. They're victims of their parents. They're victims of a justice system that I think went way too far and used their power to really secure a conviction at all costs. It's not right. They're victims too, but yet people don't look at it that way. These two caused the carnage, Balian said before gesturing to the brothers who were watching on a live feed. Garagos also questioned Hockman's repeated invocation of the insight that the brothers needed to show in their crime to justify release, noting that a standard relevant to parole hearing, not that, oh, noting that's a standard. So the standard to a relevant parole hearing is um, do they uh, have they been rehabilitated? Not do they have insight? That's not exactly the standard. So they're kind of like pushing the goalpost, if you know what I mean. So, and like even if all those things that Hockman said that the brothers needed to admit to in order for him to even consider allowing resentencing, even if the brothers admitted to all those things, which they would never do because that's compromising their integrity and the truth, but even if they did, there's no guarantee that Hockman would let them out. So, I don't know why they would ever want to admit anything to Hochman. After Hochman filed his opposition last month, supporters of the Menendez brothers accused the district attorney of playing politics with the siblings' lives. Among his first moves in office was to hire Kathy Cady, a former prosecutor who served as a victims' rights attorney to the lone Menendez relative opposed to the brothers' release. And that was Milton Anderson, who is, like I said, he passed away in like just the last few months. He also demoted and transferred two attorneys who argued for the brothers' release under Gascon, and that is Nancy Theberge and Brock Lunsford. And we will hear from Brock in the press conference. In this move, him demoting them, transferring them, demoting them, and transferring them, triggered a civil lawsuit against Hochman and a close political ally in the office. So Hochman and someone else in the office is getting sued because of the move that happened, the demotions. This is a show proceeding by a DA who, frankly, is a throwback to the 90s or, in this case, the 80s. He's so backwards in his train of thought, and he takes victim advocacy backwards to the 80s and 90s. That was what Garrigo said. That last part I added on, but in their motion advocating for the brothers' release, Garagos and attorney Clifford Gardner reiterated that the brothers have had few rules violations during their 30 years in prison, and both were given the lowest felony risk assessment scores available from prison officials. While the brothers' resentencing petition will draw droves of media to the Van Nuys courthouse over the next several weeks, it is not their only potential path to freedom. In addition to their motion for a new trial based on fresh allegations of SA by their father, Gavin Newsom is considering the brothers' application for clemency and directed the state parole board to launch a risk assessment for the brothers. If they were granted clemency and appeared before the parole board, however, Hochman has vowed to fight their release again. Well, isn't he lovely? But doesn't matter. And I really do think that Hochman and Gavin Newsom see differently on this issue, because every time Hochman says and does something really, really stupid about the case and, denying the brother something, then Newsom comes out and says something else that is in favor of the brothers. So most recently, he did say on his podcast, he has a podcast. I don't know what it's called, but he's got a podcast. He said that whatever happened with the resentencing thing yesterday, he said it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect the clemency, what might happen with the clemency. It's not going to affect the risk assessment. He said he's still going to have that by June 13th, the risk assessment is going to be complete. They're going to have their final hearing that day, and Gavin Newsom will review everything. So hopefully we have, a recommendation for a resentencing or clemency, whatever, well, Gavin Newsom would be clemency, but even before that, I'm hoping clemency. All right, we're switching screens here, and we're going to get to Mark Garagos here. This is right after court ended for the day, and the judge ruled that the brothers will have a resentencing hearing next week. So here is Mark Garagos.
Let's listen in.
I don't want to get ahead of myself, but today is a good day. Justice won over politics. It's been a long time coming for anybody who was in the courtroom. It was very difficult to sit and listen to what we witnessed, and we're obviously very thankful to the judge, and I couldn't be prouder of representing this family. They've waited a long time to get some justice, and today was actually probably the biggest day since they've been in custody. I'm going to let them talk. I'm going to just say a couple of things. We heard and saw a lot of performative art, performative theatrics from the DA's office. The fact remains, and by the way, he's here. I had him under subpoena. Brock Lunsford, who was hardly, if you knew Brock like I knew Brock, the idea that he's some kind of a toady is laughable. And you should ask him some questions. I subpoenaed him here today, but I did not put him on the stand. He, I thought, did the right thing, the brave thing. I, in the courtroom, apologized to the family. I have seen something that I've never seen before, where a DA's office who basically hired for a head of victim services, somebody who was absolutely at odds with everybody behind here, and then gave them no support whatsoever, and then traumatized them again by throwing what I only consider to be a abhorrent picture up on the screen without warning, by the way, that I would have been chastised for if I did it as a defense lawyer. I just think all in all, it was an important day, a great day, and I'm thankful to everybody behind me for entrusting me. I'm thankful to Cliff Gardner, who ran away. Where are you? Come over here, Cliff.
I didn't get away yet.
Come here.
I'm here.
I'm going to tell one small story about Cliff, and then I'll let him talk, and I'll duck out. About 2 years ago, when we were talking, and by the way, we still have an unblemished record. If we work together, we have an unblemished record. And we were talking about the writ of habeas corpus, and that was almost a little over 26 months ago.
Yeah.
And themselves.
That was interesting. I don't know why they got into that. Sorry, guys, I didn't know that was in this one.
Why don't we just do it? Because we enjoy working with each other. And so we did it together. Now I just...
Worst decision we ever made.
Ever made, yes. Because Cliff will tell you he does nothing but post-conviction litigation. Is there any case you've had more post-conviction litigation on than this case?
Sadly, no.
Yeah, sadly, no. So hat tip to Cliff, who I think is the best appellate lawyer of his generation. Hat tip to the family, and they'll all talk. And thank you all for paying attention today.
So
he's hugging Anna Maria Baralt. I've talked about her many times on the show. I've played some of her Instagram videos and things. I just wanted to point out the woman, the blonde here in the pink coat, that is Erik's wife. And I believe this is his daughter or adopted daughter. Talia is her name and is the wife, is from Tammy is the wife's name. She from a previous marriage. I just wanted to point that out. I can't see I don't know who the other family
there you have the family member of the Menendez brothers who's been doing a lot of...
I believe that is Teresita Baralt, who is the one who said she never, that's Anna Maria's mother, and who Greg is hugging now, and Greg, Mark, Mark Garagos, I don't know, Greg Garagos. That's who he's hugging right now is Teresita Baralt, who is, I want to say Jose's sister, but I might be wrong. I can't remember.
Speaking, the woman there with the brown hair has been doing a lot
Today's
of
a good day. Thank you guys for being here. Today's ruling affirms something that should never have been in question. The facts, fairness, and the law still matter. The court made clear that this process isn't about politics. It's about truth. It's about justice. And it's about giving people the chance to show who they are now, not just who they were in their worst moment. We're especially grateful to former DA George Gascon, Nancy, Brock, and the entire team who took the time to do a real, rigorous, and fair review of Erik and Lyle's case. Their conclusion wasn't based on sympathy or politics. It was based on evidence. They combed through decades of records. They looked at Erik and Lyle's rehabilitation, their education, their contributions to others inside prison, and they applied the law exactly as it was intended, without bias, without agenda, and with integrity. Erik and Lyle have taken full responsibility for what they did, and for decades now, they've continuously shown their insight.
Those are, I just wanted to pause it because those are pictures or drawings because, people weren't allowed to take pictures in the courthouse. They were on Zoom in blue prison suits. And they said at one point Erik was nervous before the hearing and he was biting his nails. There was another point where Lyle put on his glasses to read. And then he kept his glasses on the whole time. So I don't know, just details that were reported that I thought I'd share. And the Baralts are on Jose's side of the family. Teresita Baralt is Jose's sister.
Through their actions, not just their words. They've apologized to us repeatedly over the years and have exemplified growth and healing. They've lived with accountability every day, all while knowing that if they'd have all of that, while never knowing they'd ever have a chance at release. They've supported fellow inmates through grief and terminal illness. Their work isn't performative. It's purposeful. It's real. We look forward to a full, fair presentation of who Erik and Lyle are today, not just a version frozen in time, in a time of pain and fear, but the whole truth. The growth, the humanity, and the men they've become. We're not naive. We know hope can be fragile. But we believe that the law is on our side. And for today, that's enough. Thank you for being here.
So that is Anna Maria Baralt. She's a
Anna Maria
cousin.
Baralt.
Yeah, she's a cousin.
And the spelling?
You know, to spell my name, it's really long. All right, first name, Anamaria Baralt, Baralt, and I am the niece of Jose and Kitty Menendez.
Anna Maria, thank you for speaking with us. Did any of you gauge the reaction of Lyle and Erik or have a chance to speak with them closely?
No, we haven't spoken to them yet, and I don't think any of us gauged their reaction.
I bet they're so happy and elated today, waking up with a smile on their face, knowing that Nathan Hochman doesn't win this one. He didn't win this round, Like, okay, round 1, we won. Round 2, that's the hard one coming up next week. But you know what? We got through round 1, and that was the big one. Or, well, not the big one, but it was a big one to get through. So it's a good victory.
Reaction quite yet, so we're looking forward to that for sure.
What was the reaction from the family when those graphic crime scene images were displayed?
Yet again, we were re-traumatized by this district attorney's office. Again, third time in a couple of months. So that's hard. That's hard. We've had to live in the spotlight for the last 35 years. It doesn't get easier for us. And so to sit there again in the courtroom and have him do it again, that's hurtful.
It's a shit move. Do you think this brings them...
The judge ruling that you get to have a hearing so you can present the evidence and say they should be resentenced. This is what they've done for the last 35 years.
We do. It was heartening to see that. I believe that the judge, I'm not a lawyer, so I'll let the lawyers do the lawyering. But it was nice to see the judge ruled fairly, thoughtfully, heard arguments. There was one glaring lie told by the DA's office today, and that his presentation was only 2.5 hours long. It was not. It was much longer than that. So for sure they got their point across, and the judge still ruled in our favor, so we're grateful.
When and if you get a chance to speak before the court on Thursday or Friday for you and other relatives, what is it that you will say to the judge to try and convince him that Erik and Lyle Menendez should be free?
We get to talk about who they are as people. We get to talk about their growth. We get to talk about their expressions of remorse and their rehabilitation. So we're all looking forward to that.
Is it growth in prison or normal activities?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Like their growth in prison, or is it?
Well, they've spent the last 35 years incarcerated, so certainly they've grown anyway, right? They're not kids anymore, they're adults, but they have gone way above and beyond any expectations.
If they were black, would they have been given the same right?
Yes, they would have.
I believe that they would have.
The DA
After 35 years?
Yes.
Anna Maria, the DA has made it very clear over and over again that Erik and Lyle Menendez have not taken responsibility or accountability for their crimes.
That is patently false. They have, repeatedly. I don't know why he keeps repeating that. That's just not true. They have.
What do you say to those people who think that they may still be a danger to society if they are free?
I think that's absurd to those people. Absolutely absurd.
You know, you guys still have next week to go through.
Yes.
Do you have any hesitation, or is there still any little bit of worry that it might not fully go in your guys' way next week at all?
Of course. There's no way for us to predict how next week is going to go. We have great faith in the system. We have great faith that justice is going to prevail. We have great faith that this judge is acting based on the law. So that gives us hope because they've certainly earned it.
And if you could say something right now to Erik and Lyle, what would you say?
We're so proud of you. We're so proud of you. We're going to fight for you forever. And I really hope this happens.
Maria, what do you want to say to the district attorney? Because I know that your family has felt the DA hasn't listened to the family, hasn't paid attention to what Erik and Lyle have done in the last 35 years, and listened to your argument. What do you say to the DA?
You can start today, is what I would say to the DA. It's not too late. You can start listening to us now.
Anna Marie, will we get to hear from Erik and Lyle next week?
I believe that they're going to prepare statements. I don't know that they will be testifying. That's a lawyer question, so I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking because, you know, the prosecution is basically saying their whole issue is that they believe they haven't accepted full responsibility. Why not just put them out there so they can hear it from them and eliminate that roadblock?
Again, that would be a question for their legal team.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else?
But the problem with that is that they've taken responsibility for the things that they've done. But that's not good enough because Nathan Hochman wants them to take responsibility for things that they didn't do, like the lies that Nathan Hochman says, like the kneecapping and all that stuff. So he wants them to be responsible for things that aren't true. He wants them to fess up to things that are not the truth. So why would you put your client out there to, if you were the attorney, why would you put your client out there to fess up to all the things that they did when they've already confessed to the things that they did? Like in testimony, they've already confessed to all the things that they did. They confessed. They've come clean to their family members. Yet here we are with Nathan Hochman still saying, well, that's not good enough. There's more that you're lying about, and I want you to confess, or else you don't get to leave because I'm the gatekeeper of what's the truth or not, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah, good.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
That concludes the press conference.
Is Mark still here? He's back.
That.
Can we get Mark back up real quick?
We should note that she is from the Menendez side. Her father.
I'm skipping through
The victims.
There's Rob Rand in the pink shirt. It's like a light pink.
Almost every member of the Menendez family that are living. We know that there was one notable one who just recently, Nathan.
there's more to this press
This gentleman is.
here. This is Brock
We want to.
Lunsford. So this is Brock Lunsford. He's the one that was rehomed. If you listen to the Karen retrial, they rehomed Chloe. They rehomed Proctor. This guy's position, his job, he was rehomed from the job that he had to a kind of a demotion. He's suing Proctor, or not Proctor. He's he's suing Hockman right now. Him and another woman, Nancy Lunsford, or Nancy Thuburge. This is Brock Lunsford.
Listen.
Assistant head deputy of the post-conviction litigation division with Nancy Thuburge. We filed it according to the law. We did our thorough research. We did our thorough preparation. We filed a legal document. This wasn't political. This wasn't an attempt to.
So he's basically responding to what Nathan Hockman said, or what Habib Balian said during the hearing. Was, they claimed that this was some kind of political move. Well, he's the one that filed the paperwork. He's the one that, did the thorough review with another attorney. So he's standing up for himself right now, in front of the press and saying, we did this by the book. It was in good faith, and there's no reason for them to be, saying that it was a political move.
We filed it according to the law. We did our thorough research. We did our thorough preparation. We filed a legal document. This wasn't political. This wasn't an attempt to gain an advantage of some sort. It was simply following the law. This is something we've done many, many, many times on other cases with other defendants. And yet this has happened on this case. On Monday, Ms. Thuburge and I filed a lawsuit suing Nathan Hockman and the County of Los Angeles for retaliation and harassment, as well as defamation for what has occurred to us as a result of us doing our job on this case. I still stand by my work, and it's vindicating to see that Judge Jessic said that we did nothing wrong with our filing of this legal document.
Are you questioning Hockman's motives?
I know that I didn't do anything wrong. I know that I did my job and did it the best I could. I followed the law and addressed all the criteria for the Menendezes that's in the statute. They meet all of the criteria that are in the statute for resentencing. I know that's what I did. I can let Mr. Hockman speak as to why he did what he did. I was transferred out of management and out of post-conviction before Mr. Hockman even came into office. So as soon as the election was won, 2 weeks later, I was told that I was out of management and out of the post-conviction area.
One thing I can't understand is how can they have shown proper insight if they're still claiming self-defense?
The thing is in the statute, Frank, there's nothing that says they need to show insight. This is something that has been sort of adopted into the public arena, and there's nothing in the statute that says that the insight is necessary for them to be resentenced. It's very clear what's codified. It's been redone several times by the legislature, and they've never said that the defendants need to show insight to be resentenced. That's something that's occurred here.
But doesn't their continuing claim of self-defense raise questions about their full remorse?
If it's true, it wouldn't raise questions of anything other than their mental state at the time of the murder.
Your name, sir, spell it.
Duh. Like, what kind of dumb question is that?
Brock, B-R-O-C-K, L-U-N-S-F-O-R-D. And the lady who I wrote this with, who was my co-author on this, is Nancy, N-A-N-C-Y, Thuburge, T-H-E-B-E-R-G-E. She was actually transferred completely out of the district attorney's office after she filed, or after we did our job, essentially.
So what?
My last name? Lunsford.
All right, so that's the end of that. Up next for you, I have the DA. So this is Hockman on a very brief interview after yesterday's big loss for him.
All right, we have some breaking news. Just within the last hour, convicted double murderers, Erik and Lyle Menendez, are now one step closer to freedom. A judge in LA has just announced he will allow the brothers' resentencing petition to move forward, which means they'll both have a full hearing in just under a week, next Thursday. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman had opposed this. He joins me now. I just got to get your reaction, DA Hochman, to the judge's ruling.
So the fact that the Menendez brothers will have a resentencing hearing is not unexpected. In fact, there was two paths to get there. One, the court had initiated its own motion for a resentencing hearing, and the second was the prior DA had initiated his own motion. We took issue with the prior DA's motion because it had no analysis of the Menendez brothers' failure to completely accept responsibility for all the lies they have told over the past 30 years, including the lies of self-defense, the lies of trying to characterize.
Where is Hochman taking the responsibility for all of the lies he's spreading, huh?
Their father is a violent rapist, their mother is a poisoner of the family, and the lie that they were trying to get a handgun the day before the murders. The judge basically said that he would not allow us to withdraw our motion, so there are effectively now two paths to the resentencing hearing. So we fully expected there to be a resentencing hearing. We're going to be prepared to argue that the Menendez brothers' request is not ripe. It's actually premature because they have failed to unequivocally and sincerely admit all the wrongdoing that they've been engaged in. And we'll see what the judge has to say at the end of that resentencing hearing.
And is the same judge going to be holding this hearing next Thursday?
The same judge will be holding the hearing, but the standards will be different. It's not whether or not there should be a resentencing hearing, but at the resentencing hearing itself, do the Menendez brothers meet the standard to not only show rehabilitation, but to also show they don't pose an unreasonable risk of danger to society, and then try to get their sentence of life without the possibility of parole reduced to a life with the possibility of parole.
All right, they continue. You say they have to admit they lied about being abused as children by their father, but they continue to maintain that they were sexually abused by their father, and that's why they killed them.
So you have actually got it completely wrong.
Oh,
so
okay.
The central defense was not sexual abuse at the trial. In fact, the Menendez brothers, we actually showed in court today, the Menendez brothers each testifying at the trial that sexual abuse was not the reason that they killed their father. They killed their father and their mother because they believed that their father and their mother was going to murder them the night of August 20th, 1989, and they basically shot them before their parents killed them.
Right, but I think I'm sorry, I wasn't clear in my question. I'm not talking about what they said at trial, although that's probably what's important in the resentencing hearing. I'm talking about what they've said since then, and their family has said since then. Their family, which are also the victim's family in this case, obviously, have argued that they were victimized sexually by their father for all of those years. So, but my question to you is, you just said you need them in order to support this. They need to admit that they lied about the sexual abuse. They have not said that.
Let me stop you there.
Okay.
It's such an important point.
He did say that, though, that they need to lie about that. Or, I mean, they need to admit that they lied about that. And he did just say that. So she just caught him saying that. And now he's like, no, let me backtrack.
Our position was not that they lied about the sexual abuse. Our position was they lied about the self-defense, the idea that they were in actual fear of imminent harm from their
Come on, why do you keep slowing?
Parents that night. We showed that they had a pre-planned alibi ready to go.
Right.
That they had bought guns 2 days before. And they talked about killing their parents a week before, having nothing to do with self-defense. And then when they actually spoke to their own psychiatrist, and it was taped after the killings, at no point do they bring up self-defense. So we're saying that the self-defense defense is the lie, not the sexual abuse, but the self-defense defense, and all the suborning and attempting to suborn perjury when they asked all their friends to basically have a variety of lies on their behalf. And none of the self-defense lies, and none of the supporting perjury or attempting to support perjury lies have been acknowledged by the Menendezes in the last 30 years. And we're saying until they come clean, fully clean, with the full breadth of their lies, deceit, and their denials, they are not in a position to be trusted, to be fully rehabilitated, and continue to pose a risk to society of public safety.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to
God, shut up, Nathan Hochman. I really can't stand him. All right, so we have a couple more here. We're not gonna watch this whole thing, but because they start to like change topic and they're not gonna talk the whole time about the Menendez brothers. But this is again the Two Angry Men podcast. Harvey Levin with TMZ, like the tabloid, the reporting, tabloid reporting, whatever, celebrity reporting stuff, TMZ, and Mark Garagos have a podcast called Two Angry Men. And after the hearing on Friday, they put this episode out.
Welcome to the Two Angry Men podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Mark Erik is here. But, this week I'm going to call this one cranky old man and one very satisfied angry man. So how's that?
I think it's fair. First of all, congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have a question about this because I want to, before we get into Menendez, I want to ask you something, but we should explain that the DA just lost a big hearing where he was trying to take the resentencing hearing off the table and the judge rejected it. There was a lot of drama in the courtroom. I want to get to something before we get into Menendez, but I do want to ask you this. Do you see this as you winning or the DA losing?
Internally, I have told, there's a lot of people that are invested in this. The term right now is stakeholder. I have told everybody who will listen internally that to me, this was the ball game, and I don't want to overstate it, but I also don't want to downplay it. And what's the reason for that? If the DA had been successful, the reason they were fighting so hard was if the judge had allowed them to withdraw, they at that point, and what has happened right now is there is a presumption that unless they rebut it, that they're going to get resentenced. And that is, I was just explaining 2 years ago when we started, a little over 2 years ago, when I was talking to Cliff Gardner, who is the appellate lawyer who I partnered with on this. We talked about this and talked about what a long shot it was. And it just not only is now where we finally got the presumption, 2 years of kind of hard work, it's created kind of almost a appellate petri dish. You've got the habeas is still alive, the governor is still alive in the clemency, and now we've got a presumption that they should be resentenced, and that goes to next week.
So that's a lot. And let me just, we've talked about this before, and I just want to make this understand this. The resentencing itself would mean that they would take away without parole. So it wouldn't be life without the possibility. It would be something less than that. That would allow the parole.
Well, he was just going to explain it, but yeah, so they wouldn't just be released with this resentencing. It's more like, well, you've been resentenced so that now you're not life without parole. Now you have 50 years instead of life without parole. And those 50 years can be reevaluated by the parole board and then looked at and the parole board can say, hey, you've done your time, you've been, for all intents and purposes, you look like you're rehabilitated, you've done your work, you're doing good here, and they could release him or release them after time served. So that is ideally what we all hope will happen with this particular path to freedom.
Board to hear the case. I know that one of the things you're going to do when you have this resentencing hearing is ask the judge not just to resentence, but to change the conviction from murder to manslaughter. They'd be free men instantly. So if you take that off the table for just a second, just play with me here. If you take that off the table and what they get is resentenced, it's already at the parole board because the governor's done it. So what I'm trying to figure out is the only thing that seems to matter right now is if you can convince the judge to change the conviction. Do I have that right?
Yes, you do. And I think, frankly, that's why they went. It was kind of crazy to me, at least in the courtroom today. They spent, mind you, the Menendez, as I call them, have been in custody for 35 years. They have one of the most exemplary files, what's called a C file. I assume that's for corrections, but they've got one of the most amazing ones anybody's ever seen. Behind me, Brock Lunsford is here. Brock is the guy who was exiled by Nathan Hochman even before Hochman took office. He was Nancy Thieberge, who was the other deputy DA who initiated the resentencing under Gascon, was literally kicked out of the office. Kathy Cady, who was representing Milton Anderson, who's no longer alive, was hired by Hochman as the victim services person. It was a unbelievable dog and pony show. I must have said it 4 times in the courtroom. What they were doing, they were fighting to call these guys liars, liars, pants on fire, basically because the last thing that the DA wanted was to have anything that suggested that they were sexually abused. Why does that matter? Because what reduces a murder to a manslaughter is negate malice. How do you negate malice? Imperfect self-defense. What 2 juries found when they hung, half of them fully, both juries found that they had acted in imperfect self-defense and voted for manslaughter. If that happens, the guys are out.
Yeah. By the way, we should say you're at the Van Nuys courthouse right now. Literally, this happened minutes ago that you won this, and there's a lot of commotion behind you. There's a lot of media there. You were really pissed off when the prosecutors showed an autopsy photo.
I'll tell you what happened. I've been in enough murder cases in my career, probably murder trials. I stopped counting after 50. One of the things that you know, both as a defense lawyer and as a prosecutor, the last thing you do if you are sensitive to the fact that you've got victims in that courtroom, and mind you, we didn't just have victims, we had virtually the entire extended family. Last thing you do is throw up a photo or a crime scene photo, and that's what happened. And they were shocked. There was no warning. And you know, I don't think they were thinking, but it's re-traumatizing to the family.
So now that the judge has said to the prosecutors, sorry, this resentencing hearing is going to go forward, do you think there was any signal by the judge that, okay, we've already heard about the murders. We know about the murders. They were sentenced for the murders. What we should be talking about here is mitigation, or will they talk rehabilitation in court? What exactly is the judge going to consider in deciding whether to either resentence them or change the conviction?
That's why you're good at what you do, Harvey, because that was basically the argument today. They spent the entire morning from 10 till 12 something. They spent most of the afternoon. Not once did they talk about the 35 years or the 30 years in prison or the C files. In fact, they started off, as you might remember, on the motion to withdraw. All they wanted to talk about is, oh, we did the hard work. I mean, Nathan Hochman with his hard work mantra, and anybody who was in the courtroom, and I said it, I was mocking him a little bit. He did so much hard work, he didn't even know how to read the C file. And by the way, they didn't even mention the C files because anybody who's done any kind of work like this understands that they were exemplary. So what do? They go back. They don't talk about the fact that after OJ, 8 days later, when the then DA in the 90s was in a fight for his political life because he couldn't win the big one, that they then shut it down. No cameras in the courtroom. Shut it down. We're going to pull the rug out from under you. You're not going to get an imperfect self-defense instruction. We need a conviction.
Yep.
We are in the fight of our political life. Fast forward 30 years later, when you said it was politics back then, it's politics again. It was just a astonishing thing to watch and see and have a front row seat on.
So, Nathan Hochman ran. By the way, I actually texted Nathan Hochman to come on this podcast to talk, and I never heard back from him. But we at least...
Shock. By the way, I said today, I don't know if you're aware of this, he was sitting in the front row, Hochman was, and watching his deputies give the very spirited argument that was basically nothing more than a rehash of Pam Bozanich, who was the prosecutor in trial number 1. David Kahn, who prosecuted in trial number 2, has passed away sadly as well. But it was a rehash of the YouTube clips of various people testifying. And then they said, look, they lied here, they lied there. But the idea was they were going to say that's a lack of insight. Insight isn't related to and is not in the statute. It was if they were doing some kind of kabuki theater, performative arts. I don't understand it. And,
so what are they going to do? Because you're going to have a real resentencing hearing next week, next Thursday. What are they going to do? Is the judge going to shut them down if they try and retry the murder case? Is the judge going to say, talk to me just about the 35 years they've been behind bars? What's the play of the DA, given what you saw with the judge today? What's going to happen next week? Can the prosecutors get into the evidence again in the case? Do they get, or do they have to limit it to the time behind bars?
Well, you would think that it would be the time behind bars. And why do I say that? It is clear to any sentient human being that the whole purpose of the resentencing statute, talk to anybody who does resentencing work, talk to anybody who enacted the statute. It is not designed there to rehash 35-year-old crimes. What it is designed to do is act as a safety valve and an incentive to inmates to do the right thing, which clearly they have done. And so rather than focus on that, I keep calling hot.
Okay, I don't know why this keeps freezing up. It's really pissing me off.
In the 90s Neanderthal. It's almost as if he feels
You just called him a 90s Neanderthal.
Do the right thing, which clearly they have done. And so rather than focus on that, I keep calling Hockman the 90s Neanderthal. It's almost as if he feels like his victory was some kind of a license to do a throwback to the 90s. The whole resentencing statute is a reaction to that. So he's walking this almost schizophrenic prosecutorial tightrope, and I don't know. I can't predict what they're going to do. I thought today was a failed strategy, and thank God the judge saw it the same way.
Have you talked to Erik and Lyle since the judge ruled?
I have not. I'm talking to you before I talked to Erik and Lyle. It was tough enough to get them on the phone in between or on breaks. I mean, you should have seen what we were doing. And, they were on a Zoom from Donovan, and it's, there's technological challenges.
Mark, I am aware. I'm aware of that, right? We won't say anything more. Will they test?
Say that Harvey, like a German Shepherd dog, has urinated in my yard.
Okay,
I'll leave it at that.
We'll stop it there because that's when they start to get all crazy. We're not gonna let them get all nuts. So that's a good recap of excuse me. As I can't catch the cough before I can pause it. Sorry. All right. So the next one here is some reactions from the family we're gonna watch.
I'm joined now by Tamara Goodall. She's a cousin of Lyle and Eric's, who has been fighting for their freedom for years now. Boy, this is really nice of you to be on the show, because I know that you've had a hell of a day, a very long day in court. I don't even know how you made it to the live shot, but I really appreciate it. Give me your reaction to the decision from the judge today.
Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. I'm really, really, really glad about today's decision. And first of all, I just want to make clear, I was not in court today. I did not go in hopes that we would be there next week. And so my superstition held out. So I'm very, very thankful of that. And, honestly, my family owes so much right now to Mark Garagos, Alex Kazarian, Cliff Gardner, and Mike Romano, because they have just fought so hard and so feverishly for Erik and Lyle. And honestly, just something that my grandmother Joan has been fighting for so long. And that just has been, just today's decision is just remarkable. And I can't even tell you or put into words the elation my family has felt today. Although we want to celebrate, we're not celebrating yet, because this is not the end of the road.
Well, it's baby steps for sure, but this seems like a big, big baby step. And you don't have to put into words, Tamara, because I can hear it in your voice. I can hear that you're super emotional tonight. Even though you weren't in court all day, I know you were getting the updates. Have you been able to tell Erik and Lyle? Did anybody get on the phone with them? Did they know?
Well, so they were in the courtroom via video feed today, so they are aware of the outcome of the decision. And I had been messaging with them up until even this morning with Erik. So I have not heard from them yet this evening. I feel like they've been super busy, especially Erik with Tammy and Lyle with Rebecca. So I know that they are really busy preparing for next week, as they have been for the last year and a half, honestly, between the requirements that they've needed to get completed for a parole board review. So it's exciting. I'm just really, really looking forward to talking with both of them. It's just hearing their voices is going to be really exciting.
You know, it's funny, I didn't expect a decision today, and that way I didn't expect that Erik and Lyle would have been in the courtroom all the way through to a decision, especially since they are actually in jail, and it was a virtual thing. So thank you for clearing that up, that they got to sit through everything right up to decision. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Nathan Hochman's presentation. I did not know, and I don't know if you knew or if the defense attorneys knew, that the DA was going to do some relitigating today with actual evidence and crime scene pictures. And I know it's been all over the news for 30 years. I know that it's not; these aren't new to you, but they can't be easy. This is Kitty and Jose's blood. This is their crime scene. Yep. How'd you withstand that stuff coming back out again today?
Quite honestly, when I heard that those images were brought out again, it was quite angering. It's so, like Erik said, it's just inappropriate. And that's honestly from the DA's team. They haven't really made an actual legal argument about why this motion should be withdrawn. So for them to just go up there and basically make resentencing arguments, again, it was inappropriate. And I think for me personally, it's just a huge disappointment of a team of elected officials who are there, who are supposedly supposed to be representing victims. And while we are multidimensional victims in this, my family are victims. And for them to bring that out to rehash what happened in 1989 was in no way necessary.
Well, I am sorry that you've gone through this, and at the same time, I'm very happy for you and your family. Obviously, this is great news for you, and like I said, I could hear it in your voice. It's really, it's fresh, and it's still very strong. Yeah. I hope you'll talk to us when we get a little bit more resolution next week. It's a big hearing next week. Good luck to you and the family getting through the weekend and the next few days, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for doing this, Tamara.
Thanks, Ashley. Have a good night.
You too. I want to bring in the person that Tamara was just talking about, Alexandra Kazarian. She was in court today as part of the Menendez legal team. I can see that smile. I know what that means, but I want you to put it into words.
Oh, well, I love Tamara. She's so wonderful. She's so smart. The entire family is so.
This is another attorney on their team, Alexandria Kazarian.
Smart. And, you know, it's telling that she knows more about the laws of resentencing than the DAs seem to today. It was very, very disheartening. The entire hearing that we had, the amount of law that was argued, we could have been done in an hour and a half, but it took 7 hours because Nathan Hochman made a directive to his DAs that he wanted to relitigate the case. And it was absolutely shocking and horrific. And Mark called it out in real time when they put those crime scene photos up, because that has absolutely nothing to do, first of all, with resentencing, and second of all, nothing to do with what we were there for today. Today was a great day. It was absolutely a victory, but it did not have to take that long. But the DAs refused to argue the actual law, which is if one DA invites the court to resentence, can a new DA come in and withdraw that invitation? And they can in circumstances where you find out that the C file wasn't complete at the time that the DA made that invitation. So there's actually rule violations that are very serious that show that this person actually is likely to reoffend or likely to be a violent person. Violence is the issue currently, not what they did back then. And it would be so much more intellectually honest if Nathan Hochman just came on your show and said, listen, I don't believe in resentencing. I don't think that anybody who's ever been convicted and sentenced to life should get out, because that is the theory that they are proceeding under. That is the argument that they're proceeding under. And Nathan Hochman is representing people in his office who believe that the Menendez brothers should never be free because they worked on that conviction. He's not representing the victims, who are people like Tamara.
Well, in his defense, I will say, because he's not here right now, I will say that he's also representing, you know, it's a kind of a half and half thing, right? If you look at the polling, those who support the brothers getting out and those who support the brothers staying in. At least I saw the latest documentary on TMZ, It was pretty close. You know, it's not completely one-sided. I see you not shaking your head. Why is that?
Because he represents the victims. He doesn't represent the general public. This is not mob law. This is not mob rule.
Okay, but I will say, DAs also represent us, the public, and they keep us safe, and they lock people away to keep us safe. So in a way, he represents the victims and he represents the rest of us. So, but to that point, let me read what he said. He said, these murders were calculated, premeditated, cold-blooded killings. Our position remains clear until the Menendez brothers finally come clean with all their lies of self-defense and suborning and attempting suborn perjury. They are not rehabilitated and pose an unreasonable risk of danger to public safety. And in the vein that he presented a lot of that bloody evidence, which is very painful, obviously, for the family, is it not also, Alexandra, a reminder to the public? It's not all about a Netflix documentary. These crimes were horrible, and these people died terrible, terrible deaths at the hands of these brothers.
Nobody's arguing that didn't happen. Nobody's arguing that they're not responsible for it. They have never said that we didn't kill our parents. That's not the point. That's not the point of the law that we are arguing now. Today, the only issue is there room in the law for the DA to withdraw the case, to withdraw the recommendation or the invitation to resentence? It's a very, very small argument. There's a very, very small universe of facts for them to pull from, and they couldn't do it. They could not focus on that. And Judge Jessic over and over again today said, this is irrelevant. This is for resentencing. This is an argument for after I make this ruling. Tell me how you have the authority. And they can't, because the only thing that Nathan Hochman's office focuses on is the gruesomeness of the crime. So just admit that you don't believe anyone that commits a gruesome crime should ever be resentenced. Just say that.
So I got 10 seconds left, but I got to get you on this. Now that Nathan Hochman will not be standing up in the courtroom next week to fight this case of resentencing, and effectively it will just be the defense attorneys fighting for a resentencing. Does this make it a lot easier next week for a resentencing or even a reduced conviction?
Oh, they're still going to fight against it. They will be there and they will fight against it. And maybe Nathan will too.
No matter whether this was pulled or not, he can still stand up and he can still fight.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's interesting. Just one more legal question, too. Might the judge make the decision actually on the day next week? And if the judge says, you know what, I'm pulling this down from murder to manslaughter, those doors open up in that prison that day?
It could be. Yeah. That's actually, that could be in the cards. And that's what we're hoping for.
Can I?
It'd be amazing. Let's all pray and cross our fingers and hope and send out the good vibes that happens.
Can I book you on that day? Regardless, no matter what?
You got me, Ashley.
Bring your clients. I'm just saying. Alexandra, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to bring in Alan Abrahamson. He is a former staff writer for the Los Angeles Times. And the reason I want to talk to Alan is because he covered this case.
All right, we're going to stop that there. I wasn't going to show his interview, but I thought those were some good interviews to watch. So again, that was Tamara Goodall, I believe. And she is a cousin of the brothers. I believe she's on Kitty's side of the family. She's with the Vandermolen family. And then we had Alexandra Kazarian, another attorney that is fighting for the brothers' release. Finally, I really wanted to bring you this. This was on Good Morning America yesterday morning before the hearings, but I wanted to leave you guys on this note because it's a really good, powerful interview, I thought, for the brothers in support of their release, in support of, who they are today. This was a family member interview. So a bunch of family members sat down. You'll see familiar faces, the Baralts, and I don't know everybody who is here, but you'll see Anna Maria and Teresita in this interview, and it's very heartwarming. So get your tissues possibly.
It's an interview with family members fighting for the Menendez brothers' release as lawyers head to court for a hearing related to their resentencing bid. Chief National Correspondent Matt Gutman met with the family in L.A. Good morning, Matt.
Hey, good morning, George. This is the first time ever that this many family members have sat down together for an interview. Ahead of today's hearing, they wanted to show how unanimous they are in supporting the brothers' release. It was also the first time that the brothers' aunt and Menendez family matriarch, Terry, sat down for an interview in 35 years. This morning, Jose Menendez's sole surviving sister breaking her silence for the first time in decades. You've held your silence for 35 years.
For everybody, this is a story. For me, it's very personal. Those kids, they are like the boys that I didn't have. So it's time. 35 years is a long time. It's a whole branch of my family erased. The ones that are gone and the ones that are still paying for it, which were kids.
Those kids, Erik and Lyle Menendez. Overnight, 8 Menendez family members sitting down exclusively with ABC News ahead of today's resentencing hearing for the brothers. And at this point, the family is absolutely unanimous that they should be released?
Absolutely.
It's the first time this many family members from all over the country have interviewed together, and it might be the last. Jose's sister, Terry Baralt, battling colon cancer. Are you concerned that you might not live to see the brothers released from prison?
It is a concern. I have tried to go see them as much as I can, but it's hard because I live in New Jersey and I'm 85. I don't have that much time. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't.
A key consideration in any parole board decision is rehabilitation. The brothers brutally shotgunned their parents, Kitty and Jose Menendez, in 1989, but since then, their prison record has been almost spotless. Ahead of the interview, Erik asking his cousin Diane to pass a message along to GMA.
They are truly, deeply sorry for what they did, and they are profoundly remorseful. They are filled with remorse over what they did, and through that, they have become pretty remarkable people.
Erik actually called you and asked you to say this?
Yes.
In early March, DA Hochman announcing his rejection of his predecessor's decision to support resentencing of the brothers, asserting they've neither admitted nor apologized for decades of lies. But he did leave the door open to changing his mind.
If they sincerely and unequivocally admit for the first time in over 30 years the full range of their criminal activity and all the lies that they have told about it.
Like, do you want them to enumerate each individual lie? Do you have a checklist?
I actually do.
The family's still angered by those comments and the DA's apparent dismissal of allegations that Jose sexually abused his sons. Does anybody here have any doubt at this point that the brothers were sexually abused by their father?
No.
Did you know, Terry? Did you know what was going on in that house?
Who knows what's going on in the house unless you live there?
Some of the cousins suspected something.
I vacuumed every day, and I couldn't vacuum past the bathroom in the hallway. The time I was there, which was quite a while, I never saw the kids' bedroom, their bedroom, or anything, because I wasn't allowed down the hallway.
Did anybody think this was weird?
I think there's a difference between thinking that something is weird and knowing that something is happening.
The family is cautiously hopeful about California Governor Gavin Newsom's fast-tracking a parole hearing for them and about today's hearing. What would justice look like for you?
Release. Hope is a dangerous game for this family. All we can hope for is fairness.
The family understands their options and time are running out.
When kids are little and they come to you, you fix the problem. I can't help them. There's nothing I can do. Just go visit them and cry when I leave. This is why I don't give interviews. It's hard.
Such a strong woman. Now, ahead of today's hearing,
Wow.
DA Hochman has again emphasized his opposition to allowing the resentencing hearing to go forward. But sources from both the defense and the DA's office telling me they believe the judge will rule today in favor of moving ahead with the resentencing hearing next week, which of course opens the door for the brothers being paroled. Guys.
Wow, Matt, that was such a powerful.
Yeah, so there you have it. That was a really great interview with, I guess, Terry Baralt. Hasn't spoken in 30-something years. She doesn't do interviews because she cries, and I can understand why. Her brother's gone. Her nephews whisked away, taken by the law, and not returned. I mean, really. And like that whole, like she said, that whole side of her family just wiped out. It's awful. And they're still victims in all of this. So let's not forget that. They were victims when Jose and Kitty were abusing them, and they are victims when they're being abused by Nathan Hochman and others throughout throughout their proceedings, like the judge and the DAs and the former offices, both both trials, not just Pam and Lester, but also the David and Carol in the second trial, because they tried to, obfuscate real issues and, confuse and whatever. And there's a real problem with not allowing the brothers to have their ability to defend themselves every single day. As we're reading through the trial transcripts, it seems like every single day, almost, there's something different going on with what the defense was told the day prior about who the witnesses are, or there might be new discovery that morning from a witness that's going to take the stand that day. So there's a lot of little surprise ambush things going on in the trial as we're reading through, even in the second trial. So don't be fooled by, just because you saw the first trial and you thought that Lester and Lester Kuriyama and Pam Mazanich, the original uh, prosecutors, they were bad, but David Kahn and Carol Nahara are pretty awful too, and we're finding out as we read through the trial transcripts. So make sure you are subscribed if you're not already. And we will, on this particular series, the Menendez Brothers Path to Freedom, I will be adding some more things. Some videos that I've already done, I'll add to the playlist. Like, in the past, appellate records and things like that that I've read through. But also going forward, if we have new documents, I'll put them in here so they're not, they're separate. They kind of have their own thing. So just wanted to let you guys know that that is how we're going to do it going forward. Let me know if you guys have any questions and let me know what you think about this case and your excitement and elation that the brothers will be going forward through with their going forward with their resentencing hearing next week, which will take place Thursday and Friday. I'm going to be a nervous wreck. Karen Reed starts Tuesday, and then the brothers are being resentenced or, having the resentencing hearing next week. So it's going to be a wild week. So definitely, like I said, make sure you are subscribed. Hit the like button on your way out, please. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye now.